F1 is back with brand new cars, immediately better racing, the end of Mercedes power dominance, the rise of Ferrari power dominance, and the disaster for Honda reliability. Daniel Ricciardo has the worst time out in recent memory in his new MCL 36. K-Mag is back and racy, and so is Hulkenberg. So it's probably 2017 or it's 2022. No one can tell. G'day there. My name is James Baldwin, and welcome to another episode of Lakeside Drive's F1 podcast. In this episode, we're reviewing the Bahrain Grand Prix. And I'm joined by my friends and yours. It's Tommy T. G'day, mate.
G'day, mate. G'day, Freya.
And Freya is joining us. Hello, welcome.
Thank you. I have some corrections to make off last time, by the way. We'll get to that.
Straight out of it. Straight out of it. No, go, please. Please immediately correct me.
What is this business about me apparently wanting Red Bull to win constructors? And don't know where any of that came from. So
I got that email, didn't you, James?
Yeah, it's very interesting timing.
It was very aggressive.
That you're bringing this up now after Red Bull have completely binned it.
Absolutely.
Oh no, I never
not.
supported them. It was still a lie. It's not on record. Okay, well then, please, for all of our fans' perspective, please correct me immediately and please lay out your predictions after the first race.
It's all part of the master plan, the master
plan.
It's
going well.
So I believe, from memory, you said I would want Verstappen to win championship,
yes.
Red Bull constructors, and then see some sort of podium along the lines of Alonso, DR and Vettel, which is not necessarily untrue. That would be a podium we'd all love to see. However, if one was to actually ask me for my opinions, thanks for doing that, by the way.
You're welcome.
Do I want Verstappen to win championship, and do I think he can? Well, and I will go back to my note prior to this weekend. Yes, sure, okay.
Yep.
But also I would have said Ferrari constructors, and then I want to see a podium of DR, Carlos and Yuki.
Yuki?
I like it.
Interesting vibe. Any particular reason for Yuki?
Well, I think if he doesn't this year, then he's probably not going to have a seat. So that's why, and I want him to be successful.
But fast forward to right now, and he's the only Honda Power Unit car to finish. So actually, it's everyone else.
Exactly.
Maybe he wasn't driving the pants off it, and that's meant its success and lasting through the race. Well, there's plenty to catch up on, but before we get into all of that, we are, of course, missing Thomas J. Camp and Dave Munnis as well as part of our crew, and I wanted to give you guys a bit of an update as to how this is working for this year. Lakeside Drive is going back to one episode a week. It'll either be a preview podcast, a review podcast, team radio, which is an Ask Us Anything kind of affair, an interview podcast, or something a little bit different. We're not quite sure yet what that looks like, but there is plenty of content to come. And yes, Freya and Munnis have joined us full time, which is exciting. So there will be a rotation of all of us through the roster. And that also means Thomas J. Camp can step down for a couple of races because it was his wedding on the weekend, which I got to go to. It was very inconsiderate, by the way, of him to get married on a Formula One weekend, including the fact that it is the worst timed F1 race in Australia that he could have done that for. So, mate, hope you're having a great time. I'm sure you'll be listening to this podcast. And to everyone at the wedding who came up to say hello to me as well, great to meet you too. Thank you for the family to support the podcast. That's always very, very important. But of course, guys, the other thing that happened was Drive to Survive came out. And Freya, you absolutely nailed the timing, apparently, finishing the final episode just before, was it practice on Friday?
So finished that. Must have been, it was Friday night my time. So I barely slept on Friday night. I was so excited for qualifying after watching it, just re-experiencing all of the motions from the last race last year. Definitely a big G up for this season.
Tommy T, you and I punished ourselves stupidly last year creating content that no one's watched.
That's so dumb.
For the last season, we went through episode by episode. If you want to watch us punishing ourselves, you can head to our YouTube channel and check it out over there. But for you, mate, obviously it was an interesting season overall, and there was a lot of anticipation for the Netflix element of what Drive to Survive was going to be. But what is your overview thoughts of it?
I don't know. I feel like I was kind of let down. I think we hyped it up so much in our heads about how good the season was. So the Drive to Survive season was going to be epic, surely. I think we forget how hard it would actually be to capture all of that like footage and storylines, every single race for every single team. So they end up kind of pigeonholing in a story where it doesn't quite fit, or the timeline was a bit shaky this season. I felt they were back and forward and it was a bit all over the shop, but there was so much happening, so it was kind of hard not to. I think probably the strongest stuff was seeing maybe like the two rookies and seeing Yuki in his episode and those kind of things. The stuff, the big like blow up stuff, that we saw all of that anyway. I don't think we got anything illuminating like that much. I think all of it was kind of captured quite well. It was more the behind the scenes stuff, and we got to meet people like the rookies and see all those. That's what I think Drive to Survive is good at, less so much just kind of re-dramatizing the stuff that we've already seen on track. And I think that's what they should focus on, because that was definitely the strongest stuff for me this year.
Yeah, well, there was certainly some interesting characterizations. We said last year, didn't we, that Gunter just disappeared from the Sky broadcast. Yeah. Turns out it's because all he was doing was exclusively talking to box-to-box films and the Netflix production, which I'm not unhappy about now, certainly now, with seeing how they're going. Hopefully there was a camera around for his big smiling face this time around. But Freya, he was so put off by having to deal with those two drivers that he decided climbing the side of a mountain was a good idea for a relaxing summer break.
Yeah, hanging out on a mountain is obviously a better option than Mazepin by the looks of things. So tell me about where you'd rather be.
Yes.
No, it was good to see, actually, to get some footage, because he was good, just gone last season. So it's interesting to see how he's spending his time. But I agree with Tommy. I think it was really interesting. I was chatting to a few people about it as well, actually, and they were kind of saying how much they loved hearing about those midfield teams, because, of course, you hear nothing about them during the season. And, of course, and then when kind of went back to the Red Bull Merc focus for the end of the season, they're kind of like, oh, yeah, no, we've seen all this before. Like, the interesting stuff is in the storytelling of the midfield, which we don't hear much about otherwise.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And, of course, one of the bigger, maybe made-up dramas, although we spoke about a lot of it, didn't we, was the McLaren boys in Daniel and Lando. But it's funny now watching that and then seeing the car launch of the MCL 36, and a lot of the McLaren content for this year is just the opposite, isn't it, of that right now, which is good to see. What I found really interesting, and I think more apart from Will Buxton, not really saying anything and having epically dramatic pauses. Jenny Gow did a great job, of course, but Christian Horner bloody loves it, doesn't he? He is trying to make it the Christian Horner show featuring Formula One in terms of his input, but it was really played up, I think, at the end between obviously Toto and Christian. And it was kind of interesting at least to see a little bit more of behind the scenes. So we didn't have the Netflix angle, did we, of Toto in the garage of the last couple of laps? As DR said, I think on some McLaren content this year, you'd hate to be a pair of Bose headphones around Toto anytime in that sort of period. But for you guys, though, do you think it is a little too much, though, for these team principals really to be taking such a main line? Tommy T, we'll start with you.
I mean, Christian Horner gives good content, though, so they kind of know what they're doing. They're just tapping into a fountain of content with Christian. And, I mean, he was some of the highlights of that series, like him being over the top, him randomly walking through a field and, like, with his wife and just talking, bringing up really poignant things.
Yeah, this is not set up at all.
I just love the staged aspect of that. I think we should do like interviews like scuba diving and like rappelling off cliffs and stuff.
Yeah,
let's do this. Let's see if we can box them and do some most random obscure interviews that are really just like casual.
Yeah, I'm here for that.
But I get it. No, I think like you have to tap in. I think I'm forgetting her first name. Wolf's partner,
Susie.
Susie, she was excellent. I thought she
was brilliant.
Was really illuminating to kind of a bit more understanding Toto as well, and the way that the team functions. So I think you do need that kind of aspect because they are so professional and they do give an overarching view, whereas the drivers just care about going fast and their own kind of stuff. They don't really care about the politics and all the other aspects. They're just like, how do I go faster? Whereas you get the whole picture looking at the team principals and those professionals in the sport.
Freya, we could tell when Toto was being interviewed after the final race because he went from being Toto Wolff to a Bond villain immediately with his turtleneck.
Black
and
turtleneck
everybody
and
has the
blazer.
targets on their
Yeah.
backs. It's like, okay,
Oh,
good to know.
100%. I thought it was quite interesting. Like they completely villainized. Is that a word? Villainized.
Sure.
Toto. At the end of that last race, and even with his kit, I was like, okay. Again, the stage side of things is just amazing. This is controversial maybe, but with Horner, I actually reckon they managed to soften him up a bit.
Ooh, yeah.
Throughout the season, the way they've shown it, just in terms of, I don't know, they had their hectic intro and then they cut to this calm English countryside, and it was a lot about him and the dogs and the kids and the horses and his wife and all of that stuff. And I think, they've actually managed to soften him up a little bit, which was certainly not how he'd been presented in the seasons previously. So, and then Toto has kind of come across the other way almost. So it'll be interesting to see if people's thoughts on them have changed after that.
And of course, if you haven't watched Drive to Survive, find it on Netflix. Look, I really enjoyed it. It was absolutely, as you said, Freya, a good G-up for what was the race at Bahrain. Let's start talking about some F1 properly. And it's time for at least my favourite, and now as a result, your favourite, Freya, part of the podcast is Tommy T's television broadcast review. TT. First of the season. And
Definitely
tell me your thoughts
hardest
on
I
watching
work.
the race live, please.
Can you pick a new time zone, you stupid idiots? Why are we watching this at a ridiculous hour? I don't get it. It's such a stupid time. Anyway, so really, I watch qualifying and then I watch the race because I'm not getting up for any of the other stuff.
Fair enough too.
Watching the pre-race. I watched a little bit of the post-qualifying and post-race. That's kind of all I can do. Because, I'm not getting up any earlier than I have to. But
Nothing has changed in 2022. I love it. Continue.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, you get what you get. We've got a couple of points though, because James has helped me out because he's a great
You're
guy,
welcome.
and he's written my notes for me as a great producer would. We've got some new graphics this year.
They look good.
I'm a bit of a fan.
Yeah.
They do look good.
Mm.
A bit more kind of like subtle, less, I don't know, hardcore video game, and a bit more kind of like stealth. I think it looked good. What happened today with no live positioning in the middle of the race? Something.
Yeah,
That's
was
what
a
I
huge
reckon. I was
chunk.
like, I'm glad, good on you for having all of your new graphics and everything else, but get the basics right.
Maybe just make
I
sure
would like to
it's
see some timing,
timing.
please, if that's okay.
kind of the main thing we need. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a couple of laps there where there was just nothing at all.
Yeah. I mean, nothing was really happening, so it didn't really matter in the middle of there. But we will get to that later. I like that we've got lots more cameras in helmets. That's a great point. That some of those views, like we got to see, I think they were showing a lot of Joe this race. He had some epic shots coming through with the lights. It's just such a good point of view to see what the driver actually sees, and I think that's really, really such a great angle we can have. Yeah, and then and then we did have some cutaways harking back to that great Monaco meme that it is now.
Yeah.
Where just at a great time, we just moved to something irrelevant.
Something
I think we're
relevant.
going to get a lot of that. That is live TV, obviously. Like, it is hard to know exactly what we should be looking at, but cutting away from good stuff to uselessness seems to be quite a trend in F1, doesn't it?
Yeah, they're very, very good at it. Okay, well, what is your initial score first out of the box for the season is what out of 10?
Can't be higher than a 3.
Not
It's a 3. 'cause It's such a stupid time.
Setting the bar
I'm going harsh
incredibly
this
low.
year. Yeah, we're going
Or
low.
incredibly high.
If you've got to be 11. You've got to be 11 p.m. Australian time, or you've got to be like 6 a.m.
I
the
love
next
that
morning
your
that I
your
can-
first judgment point is something that we just absolutely have no control over whatsoever. It's like, if it's a shit
Start the
time
race
here,
earlier. No,
it's
this
no
is
good for
the
anyone.
UK's fault. This is the UK's fault because they schedule around being like a 2 p.m. in the afternoon or Sunday time,
yes.
whatever it ends up being.
Yes, insert any kind
Just
of
kick it a
comments
bit
about
later,
Sunday
kick it a
lunch.
bit earlier. Like, why not? That's it. Let's
Well,
just
look,
change that up.
There's obviously a lot of room for improvement going forward. The good news is at least the third race is in exactly our time zone because it is in Australia. Can't believe that's actually happening. We get to experience that in person. That'll be fun.
I still don't believe it.
The national anthem and flyover is a campy thing, so I will leave that for the time being. But guys, there is some news, I suppose, before we get into talking exactly about the Grand Prix itself. Bahrain testing, Freya, DR out with COVID. McLaren looked incredibly good, didn't they, in Barcelona? Were maybe some upgrades that were brought, but absolutely no good from a brake cooling point of view at the front. They had really struggled with that. Lando had to carry all of that work, but even though that happened, he still finished behind Daniel in the actual race itself. But this is no good for McLaren at all, is it?
It's not. I mean, I couldn't tell you how good they looked in Barcelona because we don't get to see it. But what we learned afterwards in terms of, the pace that they kind of reported on seemed to be okay. And then obviously they were having their brake issues. And I get nervous when you have a driver out during testing for such a significant period of time because I don't think it generally bodes well for them, just generally speaking, during the season, just in terms of that time in the car. Although, as you said today, didn't seem to have that much of an effect on their two drivers. But what we saw today doesn't get me excited about McLaren season, unfortunately.
No, it's a very bad, not good time. And what's probably worst of all is that there was so much buzz, wasn't there, Tommy T, about how good they were looking after Barcelona. Articles from the race and others sort of saying that they weren't suffering from porpoising. They had it all together. They were looking quick. But of course, for this track, and Lando came out to say it after quali, this track doesn't suit McLaren, which is not a good thing to hear. I mean, this is very much DR and Renault 2019. 5 out of the rest of the tracks are Renault tracks and everything else is not so good.
Yeah. Yep. That's kind of what it's sounding like, isn't it? I mean, did they go well in Barcelona? We never got to see it. So I think everyone's just colluded together and just said that because we didn't actually get to see any of it. But it's not looking good, is it? I think you're spot on. I think this is going to be one of those track-dependent cars at this stage until they can figure it out. I wonder if it's going to be they're going to need to figure out that brake issue and then everything kind of comes back together. And it was just one of those times. DR not in the car is a massive issue, like Freya said. I think that's such an important time to kind of just try lots of things, see what sticks, and he just missed out on all of that. Then you've probably got Lando being fatigued, having to do so much more of the driving. So it's not a great start either. Like, it's probably the worst way you could start the season, really, with your driver lineup going that poorly in their preparations.
Yeah. Well, McLaren Indy looking a lot better. I think they took pole over the weekend. So if you're a McLaren fan, look over that direction. Mercedes no pods, which is hilarious when that happened. The significant change in design from Barcelona to Bahrain. I mean, this is just epic, isn't it? This is Mercedes trying to get as much as possible out of it. Freya, there was some kind of rumblings that our mate Christian would start going, oh, that's not within the spirit of the rules. But there wasn't. He was like, yep, looks fine to me. Let's see how it plays on. But it kind of set them on the back foot a little bit, didn't it? Or at least it felt that way.
It did sound that way. It was to see such a drastically different car was, that certainly took me by surprise. And Christian, to be fair, initially he did apparently say, that's illegal, I think it was their mirrors maybe. But then came back and said, actually, no, that's fine. Okay, righto, Christian, gymnastics over there. But it's interesting to see Merc at the start of the season, not that powerhouse that we're used to, which is, it's good when it comes to seeing mix up and having such unpredictable results as well. I think everyone does get a bit tired of going into each race going, which of the two will you select as to who's going to be up this weekend? It's really exciting to say who knows what's going to happen. Yeah,
absolutely right. And one of the things I think that we can all sort of check ourselves on is that Mercedes weren't actually sandbagging, which we're just not used to at all. I think we have to go back to 2018 to find the last time Lewis Hamilton was positive about the season in testing. Up until that point, in the last couple of years, he was like, oh, no, we're nowhere. And then, of course, would come out of the gate and absolutely smash it. But for this time, not so good. The team, though, that seemed to have consistency between both tests with Ferrari, and if you haven't listened to Carlos Sainz's interview on Beyond the Grid, go and do that because it is very, very, very good. He is an absolute legend, and I genuinely hope that he wins the World Drivers' Championship this year. But they were really happy with the design. Tommy T, we spoke about how good the car looks. The fact that they had some consistency, they didn't bring major upgrades to Bahrain, unlike every other team that did, just meant that the last couple of years where they have been struggling a little bit for that pace means that they've been focusing in the right spot, which is for this year. And that is absolutely proven up and down the grid when it comes to the Ferrari power units. We've seen, of course, Alfa Romeo and Haas, fifth.
Yep.
Anyway, just incredible stuff. For you though, this is the rise of Ferrari, isn't it?
It is, and it's gone this way, and we could see this happening, that maybe Merck and Red Bull were going to focus on this 1 year, this outlier year, trying to get that one last championship with old regulations instead of putting all their eggs, which is what Ferrari's done, into this new regulations, which is going to last for, I don't even know what it's scheduled for, I think 8+ years, which seems like the good play now, doesn't it, when Ferrari is looking this much further ahead. Instead of focusing on that short term like the other two manufacturers did. But we're one race in, let's not overreact. I mean, it's a podcast, let's overreact a little bit because that's fun.
That's what I was going to say. Like it's such
it's
a
definitely
long
looking
season.
like they made that long-term decision.
Yeah, it is a long season, Freya. You're absolutely right.
It's the same for McLaren as well. Like, obviously, we're all pretty down after this morning, but, race one, we've got a lot to go, and you don't want to write them off too quickly.
The other thing that came out in the last couple of days is the FIA have released a report that only presents more questions than answers. The top line is that it's human error is the cause for what happened at Abu Dhabi. Anyway, I'd encourage you to not read it. because it seems like an absolute waste of time. And the other thing that's changed for this year is the tyre rules going into the beginning of the race. Free choice for everyone. It's interesting. Martin Brundle sort of questioned it, going not really sure why that makes any sense at all. But it has happened. And of course, we saw everyone start on softs except McLaren, and that didn't work out very well for them. Tommy T, do you think that aids maybe those sort of in that 9th and 10th position, which have always struggled, haven't they, in terms of trying to get through? You think of, George Russell in his Williams days.
For sure.
It's going to make better racing.
If you have to go through the first stint on used tyres because you are punished for qualifying, say 6th to 10th, whereas the guys in 11th and 12th get to have whatever they want and ideal strategy, that doesn't seem like a reward for qualifying faster to me. That it sounded like a disadvantage. Those guys in 9th and 10th were routinely, and I think in like our second season, I did some looking into it, and it was consistently 11th and 12th would always finish further up the grid than the 9th and 10th starting places. It was just always was happening, and it's just one of those things that just didn't actually give you an advantage. So you're like, do I get through Q3 or do I just like get 11th and just sit here and have the perfect strategy going into the race? So I think it actually is more even. Everyone's starting on that, and it's your reward for qualifying is you get to start in front. You don't need a punishment for that. I think it was a bizarre thing to start with. I like that it was trying to keep it more competitive, but it was actually too much of an advantage for not being fast enough to get into the top 10.
Yeah, what do you think, Freya?
I kind of agree. I can see the point in terms of saying who does this really help, and it's just a small section of the field really, but I think overall it didn't make a lot of sense in terms of what the pros and cons are. And it's also when you get people start playing with where they actually want to finish in quali, you can say, well, am I better off sitting in 11th so that I have that free tyre choice, whereas this you're going to lose that element of any joking around, which I don't think you necessarily saw a lot of, but I think it simplifies it as well. Fine. Yeah.
The greatest thing I think that has happened though before we got actually into F1 cars on track properly, and it's not great because Seb got COVID, but it's Hulkenbach 2022. Incredible scenes that he was in bed when he received the call from Aston Martin, and he had to get on a plane and then get into a car that he'd had absolutely no running in whatsoever, and did very well in qualify. He out-qualified Danny Rick. 17th and DR in 18th, but it is very, very 2017, as I said at the start, Tommy T, of seeing Kevin Magnussen and Hulkenberg back around here. It's a feeling like this kind of energy that's shifting towards the front. Of course, Hulk unfortunately being right down the very back of the grid. The Aston Martin just not looking as strong this year. But we love to see it, don't we? These older drivers coming in rather than the newer talent being promoted up.
Well, you definitely do. You hate young drivers.
Yes, I do.
This is a consistency you have.
Hates young people.
Whenever we can have old guys in, he hates the young people. More boomers in cars is what James wants.
Youth of today, watch out. James is on your case.
Yes,
that should be our next merch.
I don't have my hat on backwards, Freya, to understand what the youth do.
I can tell you all about what the youth do, mate.
Oh, yes, you can. Yes. What is up, fellow young people? Yeah, so it's there's just nowhere to go from there. Let's talk about quality.
I love it.
Because this was right out of the bag Ferrari's game. Charles Leclerc in first and Carlos Sainz in third. It is a 3-horse race at this point in terms of who's going to be up the front, with the very clear faster cars being the Ferrari and the Red Bull. Mercedes not there yet, although, as you said, it's only the first race, so probably plenty more power upgrades and aero upgrades to come. But for the championship, though, this is great, right? I mean, it's almost as much as people would want Max to have back-to-backs, it'd be great to have a different champion straight away after the previous championship. And look, Max has got heaps of, as I said, 2028 is when his contract expires with Red Bull. There's plenty of other time to do that. But qualifying, Tommy T, it was good to see cars back on track properly, doing some proper lap times. They just look so bloody good, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, and they do look good with the lights. This track is always good for watching cars. I don't know if it has the best racing, but it is nice to watch them. It's one of those ones where the drivers really enjoy it, but it's maybe not the best racing. But qualifying was excellent. You're spot on. I think there's 2 teams, and I think it's Sheely, just Hamilton being excellent that car was where it was in qualifying. I don't think it's actually the car's performance. He just wrung its neck and got it to where it needed to be. I think it was really impressive to see Bottas. I think that was the highlight for me. To see him out qualifying the guy that replaced him.
Yep.
Is just the best.
See, he can say what's going on, fellow young people, from ahead.
Yes. I know, another old guy just giving it to him.
Mm-hmm.
You just must be stoked about that.
I don't say old guy because it's like same age. Come on.
That's what I mean. The boomer races.
Feel like, oh my god, good. But who was a standout surprise for you, Tommy T? I mean, the correct answer is obviously Magnussen in 7th. So the Haas is a complete shift from last year. Ties in what you were saying about the eggs in the basket, doesn't it? In terms of totally focusing on 2022.
Totally. Yep. That hot desk they had at Ferrari has really been working out, and they are they're off to a great start. And we knew that this was what was going to happen, and they hinted to it all season long. And when we did get to see Gunter, that's what he was saying, was like, we know we just have to get through this season. Like, we know we're not competitive. This car is not going to improve. We're not putting any energy into it because there's no point. We can go from being the worst team to the second worst team. Like, what's the point in doing that? Let's put all of our energy into this next and the future. And I think that was a really smart investment of their time and resources for a small team. And it's netting results already, because K-Mag looked really good, didn't he?
He did. 4th fastest car on the grid for the whole weekend, which is like, Gene Haas has to be just the happiest guy in the world at the moment in terms of a racing team owner. He has to be.
Oh, you got in there first.
Freya, delay.
Freya, I know. Yeah, there you go. It's the island time adds an extra second of delay. Freya, well, I know, because we've spoken about it, just how good it was to see K-Mag back. The garage has been so happy. As I said in the last episode, the social media manager for Haas has just been the happiest guy on the grid, as separate for Gene Haas back in America, because there are so many happy faces in the Haas garage that it just makes everyone happy. That photo of Gunter coming up to Kevin after he qualified like that, that's what we want to see, isn't it?
And absolutely. And you just, in the various kind of interviews and stuff with K-Mag over the weekend, you can't wipe the smile off his face, and you just love to see it. And what I'm really enjoying about him as well is that he's genuinely thrilled to be there. And I think seems to feel the privilege of being there as well, in terms of going, I'm so lucky to be racing in F1 again. This is my home. I love it. And there's no sense of entitlement, which is refreshing in comparison to his predecessor. So having somebody acknowledge the privilege of getting to race in F1 was really nice to see.
Yeah, total shift in attitude, and it's lifted the entire garage, as I've said many, many times, and I love seeing it. It is great. And he, as you say, Freya, that sort of new reignited passion, because he just wasn't thinking about Formula One at the beginning of this year, how lucky he is, but it means he's probably working the hardest he has ever worked. And of course, the result this weekend absolutely shows that. Of course, as we said, the McLaren's pace was nowhere. It kind of looks like the three slowest cars at the moment are Williams, Aston Martin and McLaren, all Mercedes-powered cars, Haas, Alfa Romeo and Ferrari on the other end of the grid, and anything powered by Honda is on fire. So that's not so good. Let's talk about the race, though, itself. I've got a few notes here. Ocon went immediately back to racing like he was in a racing point, spinning around another car. He's very good at doing that. Immediately handed a penalty. But Mick Schumacher, hats off to you, my friend. You win the Drift King Award for this weekend. A full 360 and just like pointing in the right direction was very, very good to see. But I think we can all agree that the Racing Point, otherwise known as Alpine, is an absolutely terrible looking livery. Freya, do you agree with that?
Oh my gosh, it looks like a piece of shit. It's like someone just throwing some bubble gum down a racetrack, and it just reminds me of kind of seeing these.
It's gross.
It's just terrible. It looks so bad, and it looks slow as well. In comparison, and I just mean that aesthetically in comparison to the other cars on the grid. Not a fan.
Yeah. BWT just needs to change their branding, because this is the issue. They're the problem.
Just invert the colours.
It's them as a sponsor. Change your colours if you want to be in Formula One. Otherwise, piss off. Yeah,
there you go. You heard it here from the chief design engineer, mechanic, head of everything to do with looking good, Tommy T, in his very oversized DR shirt. In terms of this generation of cars, though, this is the first opportunity we've seen that they can follow. And by lap 6, Freya, there was still, you could see the whole procession of cars still down the main straight in the same shot. There was not even DR was still in shot at the very back of the grid for a couple of laps there. That is bloody good news. It's looking good so far for these new changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Because obviously no one knew that's what they were telling us. They're going to be able to follow more closely. They'll be able to hold on for longer. We're going to be able to see battles lap to lap rather than having that battle and then people having to go and take time out before they come back. So it's really exciting that that's actually something that's been delivered on track, and it'll be interesting to see again if it gets maintained in different circuits and that type of thing. But and as people make adjustments to their car throughout the season, but it's just a relief to see that is something, in terms of promises being met as a fan and seeing good racing. Like, just every lap was so good.
And Tommy T, the constant battle, it seemed, that went for 3 or 4 laps was Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen going for it time and time again. And we saw previous iterations, of course, of Formula One cars where you'd have one crack and then you'd have to back off for 5 laps to cool everything down and have a go again. To have them sitting so close for so long, this is just what we've needed.
For sure. And then, but the ability to have that counter move as well, because you're not instantly stuck behind or getting dirty air thrown in your face. You can actually throw a counter move. We saw Charles do that today. Max would get through and he'd throw a move straight back at him and get back in front. That's exactly what we want to see, is sustained battles, not just this, I'm going to slowly get up and then I'm going to throw one move down the longest straight of the race and just beat you in a braking zone. That's not exactly what we want. Yes, it's an overtake, but it's not what we want, really, is it? We want kind of in the thick of it, kind of, we want dogfights is what we want, hey?
Yeah. Well, we want an interesting season. I mean, the mid pack is so tight, so close, and the person leading that mid pack is Lewis Hamilton, who's racing other people for the first time properly for position, including Kevin Magnussen in a Haas. Still makes me go, wow.
Yes.
And it's great to see. It is, hopefully, in fact, we see the gap between Ferrari and the Mercedes power unit close right up, so that everyone all up and down the grid has a good crack. I mean, the Renault power unit is kind of neither here nor there, but it is reliable by all accounts. They're both, from a points point point of view, they both finished in the points, and that is better than a lot of the Mercedes powered cars. So that's good news as well. All right, let's talk about team by team, usual analysis, and we'll start at the very back of the grid. Confirmed that McLaren is faster than Red Bull because neither of them finished. Good. Though before that happened, Max Verstappen was looking on it. Freya, it doesn't look like they've got the stronger car compared to Ferrari, but Max is still hanging on to that thing and he wants this next championship, doesn't he?
Oh, 100%. And he's got Perez to support him there to get it done as well, which we saw again a bit of today. And I think that's going to be a really interesting battle. If we do see, Ferrari and Red Bull both continue to be kind of those main players when it comes to championship, it will be quite fascinating because both of them have two such good drivers who work so well together, as opposed to, not to say that, he didn't help in certain situations last year, but you didn't see that with Hamilton and VB last year. He was doing a lot of that work by himself. So it'll be really interesting to see those two because they've both got complete teams. It's going to be really interesting to watch.
Perez really stepping up, Tommy T, and it feels like the gap to Max is a lot smaller than we've seen since DR out of anyone.
Yep. No, he's definitely looked like he's improved. I think spending an off-season with the team has definitely helped, and he feels way more comfortable in that car. Maybe they're looking to make some concessions and move it more towards his driving style and not just like, here's a replica of Max's car, deal with it, subpar driver who can never do the same. And especially with new regs, is always going to help because you're starting from scratch together, so they can kind of collaborate on the car more than like inherit his driving style. But yeah, like definitely way more competitive. Just unlucky today, wasn't it? Like one more lap and they would have got through. That's a dangerous place to lose an engine for Perez as well. Mid corner and just seizes up on you is not great. Because it just looked like he lost the corner, but really he did nothing wrong and he was fine. But yeah, it's not really boding well for that new engine endeavor for Red Bull, is it?
Well, lucky Honda's still around, but maybe they shouldn't have stayed around. It's like the opposite of what happened in 2009, although it was the opposite of what I said last week. But Freya, the racing that Perez is doing, the overtakes that he's doing, they're great. I mean, we're not talking, and really the commentators hardly spoke about him compared to Max. Yes, Max being the champion, but he's that silent sort of performer now in the team who is there to get results. And what happens if Max falls away? Well, he's there to get a podium. And up until the second to last lap, he absolutely was doing that. But I mean, Christian's going to be stoked with this driver pairing, as you said. And there'd be, at this point, looking at the first race, there'd be no reason why Perez would be worried about going anywhere else apart from Red Bull in the future.
No, I don't think so. We saw snippets of it at the end, like towards the end of last year. And again, it happened in Abu Dhabi. He was there to play his role. He's reliable. He's there where you need to be in those moments whether it's holding somebody else up or creating more of a battle or there to take the podium if something else happens up front. I would like to make a note of a message that I sent to you, James, at 10:52 this morning. So this is like an hour before the race finished, saying, imagine if something happened to the Red Bulls and Ferrari get a 1-2 first race back.
Would you do that for?
Wants to. I know things.
There you go. You should do an F1 podcast. Thank you for also timestamping that. Absolutely not. That means it was like 1 anyway in the morning here.
I just think she threw a spanner in something and like actually sabotaged those engines.
Yeah. Cayman
Where
Islands
were
just
you
super
yesterday?
Close to Bahrain, allegedly.
No one knows, Tommy. Cayman.
Just in some Cayman vertical.
Where is the Caymans? No one actually knows. Hey,
It's made up. Sounds like
It's
a
in the
made
Red
up
Bull
place.
garage. That's where it is.
The saboteur.
But look, positive. If they can sort out this reliability issue, which means things don't catch on fire / just turn off / keep failing, then that's not a bad thing. But I mean, let's be honest, brand new series of cars, something was going to go wrong with someone. We've seen, obviously, Red Bull suffer from that reliability issue in the past. Under the Renault era, we know Danny Rick suffered a lot of that too. So I don't wish that upon them, because if it's going to keep happening all the way to the end of the race where they're looking strong, and then nothing, then that's like, we don't want that. We don't want Ferrari to run away with the championship, because I'm already sick of Ferrari winning. I remember when Lewis Hamilton used to win races. Anyway, so let's talk about McLaren then, because they have the most work to do out of any team on the grid. DR ended up finishing in 14th, ahead of Lando in 15th. There is some solace from an Australian point of view to see that he outperformed his teammate, but for both of them, it is exceptionally disappointing. Zach Brown, maybe this is just the proof that Apple is better than Android, Tommy T?
I mean, I'm the first one to stand up for Apple products being superior, but that's because I do design. Otherwise, they're kind of annoying and expensive. But yeah,
yes,
it's not a good start, is it? I've got hope that this is just a one-off, and they just had a run of bad luck, and fingers crossed it's just a blip, and it's not really indicative of what's coming for the rest of the season. I don't have anything to back that up, but that's just what I'm hoping.
You're all hold on to hope. He can still be World Driver Champion, right? Right, guys?
Yeah. You're telling me there's a chance?
Yes, there's a chance. Well, there is absolutely a chance. Still,
he's got the same points as Max.
There you go. Exactly. Good. See? And they're faster than Red Bull. That's why you're here, Tommy T. Thank you for coming. Freya. Lando, though, as Tommy T mentioned before, did a lot of the work in testing in Bahrain. So he traveled a lot of this track. I think it was the safety car that was unfortunate for him. He had a very slow pit stop as well. Of course, these tyres now being bigger, being 18-inch, there's more margin for error. Did we notice as well that the pit stops were slightly longer than what we've seen with those smaller tyres? So the whole package, I think, probably for McLaren, they need to go away and have a proper look at it. But how are they going to pull themselves together for the next race, which is also in the...
Yeah, it is a little bit worrying, but you hope that they will take what they can learn from today's race and make some changes. Don't know what they're going to be, but you worry about them on any of the tracks that are similar. As we've said, there's a lot of them, right? So it's concerning if that's not going to be something that they can deliver on. But I think the other thing which would be interesting for those two is seeing how if they're able to work together a bit as well. Because again, we've seen how much more successful for both individuals as well as a team when you've got both drivers working together really, really effectively. I mean, it's not surprising and it's not rocket science, obviously. But my question is whether or not those two will be able to do that, which, I mean, they've done it once before, but that's actually the only real time when we've seen it. So I'd be interested to see if they do more of that this season.
We'll get back to the Grand Prix review in just a moment, but I wanted to ask you a small favour. We're into our 4th year of being an independent podcast, free from advertising and paywalls here at Lakeside Drive. Whilst we might change that in the future, for now at least, we are all here as fans just like you. But we do need your support. There's 3 things that you can do right now to help us. The first is to leave a rating or review on your podcast app of choice. You can even now rate us on Spotify mobile devices. The second thing you can do is follow us on our socials. The link is in the description below, including subscribing to our YouTube channel or our Discord server. And finally, you can tell 2 F1 loving or Drive to Survive adoring friends about us. We know there's a solid 1,000 of you out there all over the world, and we can't thank you enough for being here with us on this journey. But we also don't want others to miss out. We're hoping to get to 10,000 downloads per episode by the end of the year, and we need your help to do that. Well, that's it from me for now. Let's get back into this episode. Aston Martin not looking strong at all. Mike Crack has a lot to do. We haven't spoken about the fact that Mike Crack is now the team principal of Aston Martin. The hope, I think, from the Stroll family, Tommy T, was that he would be the one to come in and solve all the problems because, of course, Otmar has absolutely no idea what he's doing. Doesn't seem that way, though. But Hülkenberg in 17th, Stroll in 12th. Yeah, it's not looking good, is it?
And that was a Stroll 12th from just being opportunistic and not actually indicative of pace. That was just like being right place, right time, safety car kind of stuff, which is classic Stroll as well, to be honest. Yeah, it's not looking good, is it? I think they're gonna. I've actually put them down as I think they're gonna be the worst team this year. I predicted that last week. I wrote it down, but I didn't send it to anyone. So
do you want a timestamp?
You've got to send it. You've got to send it, mate. It doesn't count.
Proof of life, Tommy T.
I know. Damn it.
Exactly.
No, I've got in my note. I haven't edited it, so it still looks the same. There you go. I don't believe it. But I don't think they're going to have a good season. I think this is going to be a real struggle, and I can't wait for the dummy spit from Stroll, Junior and Senior, when this all goes to crap, and they're basically just a marketing exercise and a branding machine. And I feel really sorry for Seb that he's going to have to deal with that when he gets back.
Yeah,
because we want to see Seb competitive, because he was competitive last year when given the opportunity.
Yep.
When the right weekend was there, I mean, he was coming second, potentially going to win a race multiple times last year, and just couldn't get it done. But fingers crossed that's not the case and I'm wrong, but it's looking that way, isn't it?
It is. And look, maybe this is, as we said, a power unit upgrade that Mercedes needs to bring to the next race. They've got some time to sort that, and maybe that will help it along before Seb jumps back in the car. Hopefully he doesn't test positive again, so that allows that to happen. But the team that didn't make the most gains forward so far this year at least is Williams. Latifi qualifying poorly in 20th, but Albon back in the car, quietly achieving again. He was up in 14th. He said he felt pretty good. He finished the race in 13th and Latifi in 16th. So they are moving slightly forward, but of course with 2 Red Bull DNFs and a DNF from Pierre Gasly as well, that's sort of what's helped that along a little bit as well. But TT, is this a sign that Albon is going to be absolutely the definite lead driver in this car?
I don't know if it's, I wouldn't say yet, but it does look that way. And you'd think his experience would trump Nick's. But I don't know. Too early to say. I think let's go 3 races and then we'll have a more clear picture. But I really hope Nick Latifi can get it done and it's a bit more even. That would be nice.
Yes.
Because we do like him a lot. He's a really nice guy.
We do. And yes, for our Canadian listeners, they also like him a lot. They have to.
Yes.
That's the law. That's Justin Trudeau has passed that law, I'm pretty sure, in Canada. But Freya, I mean, nicest grid on the team. Alex Albon, though, looked pretty happy to be back in Formula 1, didn't he, through qualifying as well, of course, as through the race. And the car looks good as well. I mean, he's got a future now ahead of him, doesn't he, even if it's not in that Red Bull seat alongside Max?
And I think that's not the right place for him to be entirely honest. And we've seen that, it's obviously he's learned a lot there. I wouldn't mind betting he's bringing a lot of that with him. But I think just by looking at what we know about Williams, and obviously his driver pairing as well, I think it's a really good place for him to be. He does look happy, and it seems like a much better fit for him. I just hope that he can achieve stuff with them as well. I think all of that only matters if you can still get some results. So I just hope that he and Latifi as well are actually able to do something with it. Because it's just, I almost had to remind myself that Latifi existed again during that. Quickly has overtaken the Giovinazzi.
He's become Giovinazzi.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Had to remind myself.
Poor Nicky.
Yeah.
But how good, just to throw back to Drive to Survive for a moment, how good's Jost Capito? Like, he's clearly that winning mentality is there. He is very, very well regarded and well loved by all motorsport series, it seems. He's sort of tried his hand at everything. But for the team's progression, I mean, he'd be not stoked. He would want to have scored at least some points this weekend. But look, it looks like they're going in the right direction. The problem is everyone else is going in the right or better direction. So hopefully there's a bit more investment to come in the car, of course. But AlphaTauri, Pierre Gasly didn't finish, and Tsunoda in 8th, Freya. That's a nod to a podium potential, maybe, for this year, if he can do a random Gasly and pull a win out of the bag at Monza.
Although, as we also said, Tsunoda only seems to race well in the desert under lights. So that does limit his potential somewhat. But
2 races in a row, though, he gets.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly. And you get some momentum from that as well, and hopefully some confidence that he can take into the rest of the season if he's able to do well in the next race as well. I was busy being sold like pharmaceutical and products and crypto right at the point at which Gasly, it's like, I mean, you can still see on the broadcast that we get over here, like in the tiny little corner, the race, you know, the thing that you're actually trying to watch. I was like, is there a car on fire? What is going on? I kind of missed that part, which was really annoying.
Who puts ads through a race? Come on, Cayman Islands, lift, be better. No one wants to buy a crypto whilst watching Formula One. There's enough crypto investment on the side of the car. Just leave it at that. Surely Mark Wahlberg or Matt Damon's around there somewhere doing something. But for you, Pierre Gasly, though, Freya, I mean, he was a great performer in that AlphaTauri. It seems like he's still comfortably qualified in 10th, but didn't obviously finish because he was on fire, but was still having a good run, had some good midfield battles as well. This is still a good place for him to be, though, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Until that point, he was doing what he needed to do. And I think, like, also for Gasly, you kind of go, where else is he going to go, really? I don't really see there being another option for him outside of AlphaTauri. So as long as he keeps performing there and hopefully helping Yuki come with him as well, so he doesn't end up carrying the team like he did last year, because Gasly is, in fact, excellent. It's really good when Campy's not here and I don't have to actually have that rebutted.
All three of us can agree.
Yes. Hopefully he doesn't have to work quite so hard to carry the team into the points this year.
Yeah, it is it's actually very nice to not have heavy breathing and just nice, positive, forward-moving conversation, Tommy T. We're not used to it.
I know.
What's going on? But the Alpines, though, both finishing in the points. Fernando Alonso 9th, Esteban Ocon in 7th. Otmar Safnau's going very well in his new, very old, familiar-looking team, but new team in Alpine. Yeah. It's good for them to, I mean, they're only Renault-powered car on the grid, so they need to be up in that position. But, I mean, being around the 5th, 6th fastest car, not a bad start. And Fernando still looking racy, even though he's he's ancient in comparison to the old people on the grid.
He is. No, he's looking good. He qualified well too. Yeah. Is there one? It seems really old.
I don't know.
Oh, good. Yes. Okay. Well, look, he's still the Boomer Plus generation, doing very well. Thank you. Thank you very much to both of you, bloody young whippersnappers that you are. But for them, though, for this season, Tommy T, is there much more that you think that they can do, or do you think they're relegated right to that in that sort of inner mid-pack fight, because this is where they were with AlphaTauri last year?
As much as we don't like Ocon, I think that driver pairing is going to be really consistent, and they're going to be consistently kind of both getting points, even if it is just kind of scraping the end of that points haul every week. But I think you'll see two cars getting points most weeks. So I think that's what's going to keep them in there. And then you're going to have those odd occasions when they just like luck into something, or they have a really like specific track that they dominate, that we've seen Renault be very good at in the past as well. Looking back to Danny Rick's times when just out of nowhere they'd have one race, you're like, this thing looks ridiculous. This is the best car out there. And then the week after it's back to being useless.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of that's what they've been for the last 5-6 years. So I think they're going to hold steady with that. Just the way they design cars is very specific around a style, and I think it's not overarching like we see every other car that does well, but it is very specifically good in certain spots. And Alonso's just outstanding. He's going to get the most out of that as well. He's going to find ways to cheat and sneak through and just
Allegedly.
Get it done. I mean, if it's there's an escape road, you got to use it.
Yeah.
Just got to go through the bollards.
All the time you need to use all of the road. Fernando Alonso, that's probably. Two teams that I just bring absolute joy to me for being this far up the grid. We'll start with Alfa Romeo. Valtteri Bottas, he had a terrible start though, which was not so good. I feel like he didn't even engage the clutch. But anyway, he finished in 6th, which was epic. He qualified in 6th. That is a good outing for Alfa Romeo. They'll be very, very happy with that. And Zhou Guanyu in 10th, double points finish. It's kind of sad because I kind of wanted Schumacher to get it, but that's okay. We'll stay there. Showing everyone that he's not just a pay driver and that he's got the skills. He was competing against a lot of the mid-pack. He was racing incredibly well. He put it to Schumacher and he was out on top. So by all accounts, for his first Grand Prix, bloody great job. And I'm excited actually to see what this driver pairing can do, because Valtteri Bottas is a machine. Freya, he is the happiest looking driver on that grid. When he outqualified George Russell, let the meme continue. The happy looking back to Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton crashing and then looking ahead meme, absolutely fantastic from me. But it's exactly what he needed, isn't it? And he's chosen the right time to leave Mercedes power units and go to Ferrari, hasn't he?
I was about to say, he got that timing right. Much like myself, he obviously knows things. But watching VB... But watching VB outqualify Russell was just amazing to see. And you really hope that he's kind of teaching a lot, both to his, to the other driver and also to the team. And then for Joe finishing first race ever in points in a team where it's unexpected, that's a good result for him. It's a great start to his career. So I'm excited for Alfa Romeo this year for sure. And I remembered that both of their drivers existed, which is a good start too. So...
I know. It's odd. You're not used to seeing that from Alpha. I think Joe kind of has always been a really good driver and consistent driver. I don't think we've ever thought of him as being this like world-beating talent, but he's always been very solid and consistent, and I think that's just going to show out this year. He's going to get good points when the car's doing well. He's not going to make silly mistakes and bin it and do stupid things, but this is a great first showing. Like, as good as you can ask for, he got points. Like, that's a great start. When we expected probably Alpha to be much lower down, I reckon that whole garage will be stoked with this, won't they?
It's funny that we come from years of how it's been to this absolutely what feels like topsy-turvy and going, what is happening? But this generally used to be what Formula One was like, where we'd have different constructors with slight rule changes make some real gains. And of course, we haven't had that with that Mercedes dominance in the last couple of years, but where Ferrari was challenging at one point with Seb and they sort of fell back, and Max was a little bit as well and then fell back until last year. So this is exactly what the sport needed, new regulations to literally shake everything up. Of course, we wish that DR wasn't on the suffering end of that, but conversely, look at the rest of the grid. And for someone like Valtteri Bottas, who everyone's like, oh, well, mate, you're going backwards to a team towards the back of the grid. Well, at the end of the day, he finished in sixth, only 2 places behind the person who took his seat, which if Alfa Romeo did that last year in Kimi Räikkönen or Giovinazzi, the world would have broken in half. That's just how the scenes would have been in Italy. So for that, I think it's absolutely great.
But like, which garage would you prefer to be in? The one where Bottas has done this, or to be in the Mercedes garage where they've underperformed and it's a very negative connotation? They'll be over the moon in Alpha, and that energy is going to be so much better. So I think the environment for him is just like, the result's not that different. It's one place, but just the way it's perceived, the energy around the team and everything is going to be drastically different. This is a positive for Alpha and it would be a negative for Mercedes. So I think he's made the right decision and he's going to have such a good season because he's just in that right environment.
Yep. And he deserves to have a good season. I mean, we saw again in Drive to Survive just how much he struggled under the pressure and, of course, in the decision and how that was made. So for this then to be, him putting it to George and quali, and, for whatever reasons that George didn't outperform Valtteri is what it is. But he is still a great driver, and that's really good to see. And as you say, the energy in every Ferrari-powered garage this weekend was absolute elation. Haas is, I think, my favourite, though. Of course, Ferrari have won more recently, but for K-Mag to finish 5th is epic. Schumacher just outside the points in 11th. I mean, it's unfortunate he had that spin around. If Ocon didn't spin him around, then what would have happened in terms of tyre deg and pit stops and safety cars, and potentially he would have been able to be towards that front, closer towards where K-Mag finished potentially. But this is just great. Freya, from everyone feeling bloody stoked point of view, Haas has got this momentum now that they didn't stuff up any of the pit stops. It's not like 2018 or 17 where there was good forward momentum and then something failed them. They seem to be a cohesive unit now, don't they? And it's only very recently that's happened.
Oh, absolutely. And as you kind of talking about earlier, it's the same. You look around their engineers and garage and the general attitude there, it's shifted massively. It's so incredibly telling, I think, with that change in their environment, how much of an impact it's going to have on how they all feel about the roles that they play, both within the team, but then also to the sport. It's as much as we can say it's great to see them being successful in the way that they've been this weekend. It's also not fun watching a group suffer like that. Watching a team go in every weekend going, we'll be last or second last, and will our drivers crash into each other or somebody else? That's not enjoyable for people to see. So I think while we can appreciate the good stuff that we're seeing, it's also just nice not to be seeing that team and everyone who's in it suffer as well. That's not enjoyable. So it's good again, and it's good for the sport. It's good for the sport when every team, as we might have, is competitive, highly competitive with both your drivers there. I was kind of like you, as I wanted Schumacher to get into the points. So I think that just would have been, again, an epic start to the season for them. But then I was also not unhappy about the fact that it was Alpha who pipped them. So it's all right.
And to finish in 11th, I mean, that's Schumacher. He's got to be happy with that. Again, there was the spin, so who knows what could have been. But he's got Kevin now, who has absolutely, as you say, changed the nature of the garage, which is changing his nature on his side of the garage as well. The team as a whole is lifting. It's more positive momentum. The amount of data that they would be sharing, as you mentioned earlier, Freya, in terms of how K-Mag feels and how his attitude is now, he'll be sharing as much as he can to make sure Haas get up. He's got a multi-year deal. Gene Haas is putting more money in as a result of what happened with the former sponsor leaving. So there's investment coming down range. He's going to want to be a team player, and Schumacher's in the best position to learn from him. And K-Mag can drive a Formula One car. There is absolutely no question in my mind after watching this weekend, after being out of it for so long, after not racing the caliber of people that he was racing, Perez and Hamilton, and he immediately sort of felt at home. You send it a little deep maybe occasionally in the first couple of laps, but still learning the car like everyone else, and he's had some time out. But Tommy T, for Haas, third fastest car on the grid this weekend. I mean, it is just exactly what the sport needs.
Remember when I was early on Haas? I think I was just way too early.
Here we go.
This was like our first season. That was my favourite team.
2020. Should we get a timestamp up? I'm sure I can find the episode that you said it.
I was like, I like what they're doing. I'm into it. I like it. And then it just instantly went downhill, and I ruined everything for them. I think they've got so much potential from every aspect, from performance, from the marketing side of things. They are the American team that has so much untapped potential. We've got two big American races, let alone like the North American, South American part of the calendar. So there's such a market out there to grow in the sport, which we've seen. Like both of the US races have sold out instantly.
Yep.
It's insane. We're going to see a lot more support.
R.I.P. in peace, trying to get tickets, right?
Yeah. Poor Freya. But I think them doing well for the sport is just going to be tenfold like value for everyone in F1 is going to benefit from them being good. And really nice driver pairing, really nice team. Like I think everything about them is good. We love Gunter, and I think both drivers are really likable, and we're going to see, I mean, Mazepin was kind of the polar opposite to K-Mag, wasn't he? Like K-Mag is just this lovely person, and he's got this second chance almost, it feels like. So he's just so appreciative of everything. He's smiling, he's happy, and I'm really excited to see how they do this season.
Yeah, it is so good. It's whilst I'm so sad and feeling very, very, very sad about DR, there's just something about K-Mag's return and how good he has performed this weekend that is making me happy, and I'm here for that. Mercedes.
And it's my fantasy team.
Damn it! K-Mag was in my fantasy team too. I also had DR, error, and I had McLaren, error. I can tell you I am binning McLaren and putting Haas in because that'll be cheap, and I'm going to put in Leclerc, Sainz, Hamilton, Verstappen, just put all of the top tier drivers in Haas. But for Mercedes, yes, look, Hamilton getting a podium, didn't think he'd get there. Certainly not the fastest two cars on the grid at the moment. This is Mercedes. But for Russell being in fourth, of course, I mean, that's where he should be really, and probably this year he won't be outperforming Hamilton. Tommy T, as our resident expert at all things looking good, Hamilton has ditched the purple and is gone back to yellow, which maybe is a sign of his mental state too, and trying to do a full reset ahead of this year, which I thought was really, really cool. Looks a little bit more fluoro than the traditional yellow, which Lando Norris then said, thank you for doing a tribute helmet for me. And then he came back saying, I'm pretty sure I was wearing this color before you were born, so actually yours is a tribute to me. Thank you for that.
Such a boomer response from Hamilton. Just doesn't get the joke. Just come on, mate. Dude, just got to play into it. He got too serious with the joke. That's just, you got to roll with it. Yes, and mate, come on. He would have been better. You're better than that, Hamilton. But no, I think we're going to see a really consistent Hamilton milking everything out of that car, at least until they can kind of get their shit together. But like, the thing that was impressive today for me about Hamilton was it wasn't going his way. He was on for like 5th or 6th, did not stop, was still on it, was still pushing, was still giving it absolutely everything, and deserved that podium. Like, because he's there, he's opportunistic. Like every other driver sitting in that position goes, well, I'll just hold here then, why not? Like, why am I going to absolutely push? Why am I going to remain in it to just have maybe one more position or keep the same result? But he will always push, and you never know. The amount of times that guy has had a crash, had an incident, been at the back of the pack and still come through for podiums or wins is ridiculous. And I still don't understand it in my head how someone can end up at the back and then still win. I was like, well, why can't anyone win at any point? But they never can. Only he can do those kind of things, and that's insane. So I think we're going to see a more opportunistic, because he doesn't have the machinery this year that he has in the past to do that. But outstanding effort as always from Hamilton. Like, you can never question that guy's ability just to give it absolutely everything on a Sunday.
Yeah, Freya, I mean, obviously big issues for him at the end of last year. Took some time off social media, came back, looks incredibly strong, refreshed, but positive. You know, the way that he didn't qualify anywhere near his normal position. He qualified in 5th, but was happy with the result. Came out and said, no, this is good for us. So where we were, we didn't think we'd be here. So this is good. This is the side of Hamilton that we haven't seen for a long time, but I think how he performed in losing last year, I thought he did an incredible job at being very humble in that moment and respecting Max. I know I said that a lot last year, but it seems like he's carried this over for this year. Yes, new helmet color design and everything else, but that actually is also really great for George to see, to hopefully inspire him to be that kind of racer as well.
Oh, totally. And I think, I'm not a huge Lewis fan just from a fan supporting perspective, but you cannot argue with his professionalism at the end of last season and how he's gone about the start of this season. And to your point, when the opportunity is there, he was right where he needed to be, doing the best he could with that car, and had the sticking ability in order to be in that position when the opportunity came right at the end of the race. It's very easy, I think, in moments like that to count yourself out, say, they're miles ahead of us, and they were. But it doesn't mean that you won't have an opportunity later in the race. So I think just his professionalism, you can't question that. And also the fact that he doesn't count himself out, to your point, Tommy, when he's right at the back, he still hasn't written off a podium for himself. And that mindset, in terms of a winning mindset,
just crazy,
is quite incredible. And from an individual perspective, he obviously, he will never count himself out from a podium, even if he's at the back of the grid. And it'll be interesting to see for teams that are not used to performing at that level in terms of results, to see what adjustments they have to make as well. You think about Haas, and they've had such a big change. It's often actually a good opportunity to kind of do more things because you're, I suppose, in a bit of a change mindset already. But for teams that are not used to winning and performing, to see how they respond to that pressure will be quite interesting. I think kind of beyond the drivers themselves and more about the broader organisation, I suppose, to see if they are able to respond to that pressure and kind of really adapt to actually having a winning mindset in everything they do and how they approach the entire season. But that's just something that Hamilton's kind of grown and finessed over his years. He's an absolute professional. And that's all I'll ever say that's positive about him. End there.
Yeah, I know. Goodness me. It's very good, though. Very good. Very well said.
I don't know, it's the hat. It's doing
but
weird
George
things
Russell.
to me.
Yes, I mean, maybe to put it on the side, see how that is as we talk about this young driver, this young whippersnapper. Coming in fourth, as I said, he needed to do what he needed to do, and that's what he needed to do, was just to slot in behind Hamilton and follow him along. Didn't see a lot. It wasn't sort of up there, but I mean, it's a good points finish for him for Mercedes. We'll be sitting now second in the Constructors' Championship, which is exactly what they needed to do. But for him learning from Hamilton now, it is absolutely still respect, isn't it, Tommy T, in terms of how he's performing. There is massive respect to Lewis. He's not trying to come in and sort of elbows out and take the team for himself, which some people said that he potentially would do. But it's good to see that there is still that honour for the older generation, for the boomers.
Yeah, I don't know. I reckon I would have loved a radio message. This guy's slow. Can we move him out the way? Like, let's get the old fella out the way.
Is it time for the trolley to come around?
I would have loved for that. But no, I think you're right. He knows he has to fall in place. Like, he probably got there and he's like, oh, I didn't realize how different Hamilton is to everyone else. He works so hard. He does so much. I don't think George knew that before he kind of signed on and got to probably the facility and was like, holy crap, this guy is relentless and just constantly better than everyone. And probably just put himself back in his place. Because I think his attitude going in was like, I don't care. I'm here to be the top dog and that's what I've got to shoot for. And you kind of have to have that to be an elite athlete, I'm sure, in some but you've also got to have some realism and understand where you fit in the hierarchy of that environment of Mercedes, because if you're constantly just stepping on Hamilton and not playing ball, it's not going to end well for anyone. So he's kind of bide your time. Hamilton's not going to be around forever, mate. I think that's what he's got to think about. It's like, okay, I've got a 2-year apprenticeship under Hamilton maybe, and then he'll probably drive off into the summer and then he can have his own lane.
There it is. There it is. Thank you so much.
Bringing it
Freya,
back.
did you have something to add?
Oh, no, I was going to say, I kind of agree there in terms of going, it's not going to benefit him in the immediate or long term to try and battle unnecessarily for number one driver position with Mercedes as long as he's racing against Hamilton. He has such an opportunity to learn in front of him. And as you say, he's not going to be around forever. So just absorb everything you can over the next year or so. And obviously, doesn't mean that you're not going to go and win races and everything else, but not to create that friction where it's completely unnecessary and won't benefit him, like I said, in the short term in terms of results and long term in terms of, being known as somebody who is a certain, I suppose, when it comes to what he's like to work with, you're creating a reputation for yourself as well. So going gung-ho to a team like that with someone like Hamilton wouldn't benefit him in the long term. So it's good to see that he's right behind him 100% and doing what he needs to do.
I think you're absolutely right with that. Ferrari, happy tifosi everywhere. 1-2, scenes everywhere. I can only imagine Italy right now is still celebrating. Carlos Sainz second and Charles Leclerc first, of course, but Carlos Sainz, not a happy boy. He wasn't happy in qualifying as well. He was not very sure why he lost so much time to Charles. Of course, last year he beat Charles in the Drivers' Championship. So for him, he thought he was going to be top dog. It's good though; they're going to be pushing each other. But this is Tommy T, where the meat is on the table. So we will see if there is such happy times in Ferrari like there have been in previous years in terms of a cohesive driver pairing, especially for last year with these two, and see what meat is left. No salads, no bread, no golden vegetable. Stupid ordering system by Campy, to be honest, but it's there. But happy tifosi, happy Mattia Binotto. It's the most we've seen of him for the last couple of years. It seems like his plan has worked.
Yeah. But I think that's what they needed. They needed 2 years kind of, it seemed, out of the limelight, out of being constantly in every headline and cheating and all those kind of things. And now they just quietly did all their business, set up a really good car, focused on it all last season, it seemed. And I mean, they were still competitive last year. They still beat McLaren last year. But they definitely were focusing on this year, and it showed. Yeah, I was a bit interested to see why Sainz wasn't as competitive as Leclerc. I thought it would have been Sainz, and I've picked him to beat Leclerc. But yeah, very interesting. And I mean, it's the first race. Who knows? Everyone's still working at little kinks in these cars, so there might end up being something that they've found. But a great start. I mean, picture perfect. You had pole position, you have fastest lap, you have a 1-2. You literally can't do it better than that. That is the perfect start to a season for Ferrari.
And it's about time for Charles Leclerc for him to win in Bahrain. He almost won in 2019, didn't he? And he had that failure. Freya, he was the driver of the day, was on pole, fastest lap, and he won the race. I mean, he took out all of it. For his attitude and confidence now for the rest of the season, he will be buoyant going forward.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, it's about time. So he had some luck, especially after Monaco last year as well. Prefer Carlos, but Carlos is going to be my favourite Ferrari driver still.
Yes.
But at the same time, I was glad to see him have some luck, because I feel like he had a few bad runs. And it's just awesome to see that both of them up there again as a pairing. I think Ferrari have just absolutely nailed it. And it'll be really interesting to see what they do this season.
Well, very, very, very happy to have them back towards the front of the grid. Everyone loves Ferrari until they start dominating, and then no one loves Ferrari. So we'll just give that 2 years. Well, that's team by team analysis done, and it's now time to turn to my favourite part of the podcast, and that is the fantasy names. Fantasy. Before we talk about this year, I want to congratulate Lydia Smidmore from 2021's competition with my favourite. It certainly was Tommy's favourite. Tommy was actually at my place when this was the name for the Monaco Grand Prix last year. Campy loves a consummate professional. And an honourable mention to Anna for apparently ghostwriting a lot of those names for Lydia. So well done to you both. Right. And of course, Lydia, now you've got your choice of merch, current merch, or the merch that Tommy T will be designing in a little while. If you want to join our Fantasy League competition, please do so. There's 117 of you already, which is probably more than last year before we even get started. And as a result, there are heaps of bloody good names. This list is incredibly long. The two things, I'm not going to read out your name, Freya, because I still don't understand it. You're going to have to explain it to me. And Manus, neither are you, because it was too good initially, and you don't get free merch. Well, probably do, but only because you're a presenter rather than you're going to win the competition. So you're immediately in the bin. Here we go. Strap in for this. You're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. Jared C. It's called a motor racing Toto. Krish F. 0 pods, 0 wins. Trent K. People intolerant of other cultures and the Dutch. Tanner W. Get the sandbags off. Joshua T. Hass, anyone seen my sponsors? John M. Too early to think of a witty name. Dilvo P. Lakeside Drive Rubbish Collection Service. Michael S. I hope you've got a lot of trucks. Where does Lewis go when he gets in there? Blair H. It's a great question, Blair, and I've never thought of it. And I read that and went, actually, that's a very, very good point. I learned English in a pub. Richard L. It's probably the first time you also had fish and chips as well. Insert pun of he who cannot be named racing, Jason C. It's weird that we're talking about Peter Dutton a lot. It's very bizarre. This is great. I'm not a Freya the Dark. Nicholas H.
I had to read that out loud to make sense of it. I was like, what? I'm not a Freya in the dark. I don't get it.
Big fan of that.
Oh, wait a second.
Yes, Michael. Yes, Mitch M. Crunchy Bumper. This was also great in Drive to Survive. We know Toto loves some Crunchy Bumper Nickel. Daniel B. Very good. Hulk and Time. Daniel T. Just strolling into 2022. Harrison P. Oil money greater than fertilizer money. Samuel R. It's called a motor race. Naomi D. There's a few of these in here. Meat on the table. Matt J. And also, Matt, thank you for that link, of course, to the Reddit thread for Sydney. And welcome to all of our new Reddit friends from the Sydney thread. Holcomb Back 2.0, Electric Boogaloo. Josh C. Campy and the Big Porpoise, Kevin A. Ricardo, didn't go very fast. Amy Q. Kevin Magnuson 07. Samuel H. My Life Porpoise. Harrison Z. Heavy Vettel. Ashley W. Mazza Bind. Jessica Q. Toto's Turtleneck. Sam A. I thought this was an AFL fantasy league. Callan S. Porpoise Foil Racing. Catherine L. Clapping for Verstappen. Olathe. In the words of DR, what if I'm just a C word? Haley H. Hulkenbach, back again. Addie T. Race with porpoise. Alex B. This is just going to be the word that kills me trying to pronounce that all year. Crashing Campy's Wedding, TA from Canada. So that was, I didn't see you there unless you were there, which was a good crash from you. Season opener at Melbourne would have been better. Yes, agreed. Kelly W. And to finish on what seems to be a Simpsons joke, Mike Crack. Has anyone seen Mike Crack? Steen N. That is a huge list, and already we're very, very, very good competition right from the very beginning. Well, that is the show. Thank you so much for listening. If you did enjoy this, please feel free to leave us a rating. You can now do that on Spotify, and you can leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts. Tell some friends. Join the Discord. We had a great chat this morning with the dumb Australians that were up with us, which is mainly just Tommy T and myself. And we love your feedback. If you want to get in touch, you can message, DM the Instagram page, or you can shoot through an email. All those links are in the description. But Freya, thank you so much for joining us from the Red Bull Garage.
No worries. It's my home after all.
And Tommy T, mate, great to see you. Thank you for wearing a very oversized DR shirt. And looking forward to seeing what happens in Saudi Arabia. It is time to say goodbye. We'll see you in the next episode. Because you're now the Jeremy Clarkson of the show. Welcome.
You got to turn it on.
Happy to be here.
Tommy T is absolutely James May. What are your whole thoughts?
Yep.
Does that mean I get to buy a Lamborghini tractor?
Yes.
That is my role.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah. You don't get to buy. You already have one, and you have Hawks. Mate, you can feel free to push Hawks Stone Lager too. That's it's your new favorite beer and beer.